In ancient Persia, justice was a serious business. The legal code was built on the principle of an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Minor offenses might get you a fine, but if you were caught slandering someone, you could be branded. For the worst crimes, the sentence was death. Interestingly, they sometimes had a two-strikes rule, meaning a first offense wouldn't necessarily lead to execution. But imagine you're in ancient Persia and you've used up your 2 strikes. You're now facing the ultimate penalty. What will it be? Suffocation by ashes, or maybe having molten gold poured down your throat? A fate some say befell the Roman Emperor Valerian. It's tough to pick a worse way to go, but today we're exploring a Persian punishment that might just be the most brutal of them all. While the Persians had strict laws, they could be incredibly cruel. Let's look at a couple of examples before we get to the main event. Consider the fate of a corrupt judge named King Cambyses II, who ruled in the 6th century BC, wanted to make an example of him. The story goes that the judge was flayed alive, and his skin was then used to upholster the judicial chair. From then on, any new judge had to sit in that very chair. A grisly reminder of what happens when you corrupt the court. You can even see this horrifying event depicted in famous paintings. Then there's the tale of Cyrus, the great's wife, and her unfortunate eunuch. She became so enraged with him that she allegedly ordered his death 3 times over a punishment known as the triple death. First, his eyes were gouged out, but he was nursed back to health. Next, he was flayed but again. He was cared for until he recovered, so it couldn't have been a complete flaying. Finally, he was crucified, and the job was done. Now, this story has many versions, but it paints a pretty terrifying picture. With these gruesome examples in mind, could anything possibly be worse? To unswear that, we have to turn to the story of a man named Mithridates, a young Persian soldier sentenced to death in 401 BC. His crime? He accidentally killed Cyrus the Younger, a rebel prince who was trying to overthrow his own brother. Cyrus the Younger had a massive army and was on the verge of victory at the Battle of Cunat. He charged his brother's personal bodyguard, the throne almost within his grasp. And then Astrahabilin, thrown by Mithridates, struck him down. Just like that, the rebellion was over. The rebels' leader was dead, so they retreated. We know this story thanks to the Greek biographer. He recorded the fate of Mithridates, the man with the unlucky throw. As you can imagine, people were not happy with him. They wanted a punishment that was exceptionally severe, and that's where we encounter a method called Scaphism. Here's how Plutarch described this bizarre form of execution. They took 2 small boats, or troughs, that were roughly the same size, and fastened them together, creating a kind of floating coffin. The condemned person was placed inside, with only their head, hands, and feet sticking out through specially made holes. So there was Mithridates, trapped in this wooden shell, floating under the scorching sun. But that was just the beginning. His captors then force-fed him large amounts of milk and honey. They also smeared the honey all over his face. Soon, his face was swarming with flies, all feasting on the sweet mixture. They kept force-feeding him until his stomach was distended and he began to soil himself inside the boat. Plutarch wrote that creeping things and vermin would then breed in the filth. These creatures would burrow into his bowels, while insects continued to eat his flesh from the outside. The slow, agonizing process of being eaten alive reportedly lasted for 17 days. After more than 2 weeks of unimaginable torment, Mithridates was finally dead. A later Byzantine historian, Ioannis Sonatas, described a similar scene, adding that flies, wasps, and bees would miserably torment and sting the wretched man. He concluded that the victim, routing in his own filth and devoured by worms, dies a lingering and horrible death. But was this a common punishment? The case of Mithridates is the most famous account, but most sources talk about Scaphism as if it happened regularly. We did find another potential instance in the history of Christian martyrdom. A bishop named Marcus supposedly destroyed a pagan temple in 363 AD as punishment. He was hung up in a basket, smeared with honey, and left to be attacked by insects. However, this sounds more like death by exposure and stinging insects than the full, grotesque ritual of Scaphism. There's actually a heated debate among historians about whether Scaphism was real. Some argue that Plutarch, a Greek, might have invented or exaggerated the story to demonize the Persians and make his own culture seem more civilized in comparison. Was he an ancient creator of fake news? We'll likely never know for sure what really happened to me. His could be the only case of true Scaphism in history, or the whole story might be a fabrication. So, did we find the worst punishment of all time? Scaphism is certainly a top contender. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into history's dark side, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more content just like this. See you next time.